Hey everybody, it is Kathy with Backyard Columbus, and today's episode is about, it is April, and April is National Native Plant Month. So this is important for a few reasons, and I will get to all of them, but let me give you a few stats. So in 2019, Ohio had its first National Plant Month, and by the way, I am doing this outside. I have to work all week. I'm a little bit cold, I'm not going to lie. It's probably only 45 degrees outside, maybe 50, we're lucky. My voice is going because, as it turns out, I am allergic to tree pollen, and I spent the last 2 weeks, one day each week, with one of our grandkids at the Columbus Zoo, and that did me in. So I can't breathe, and it's jacking up my vocal cords or whatever, so I kind of like it. It's kind of huskier than I normally am. So anyway, I'm fine, but I really want to be outside, so who cares about allergies? I have an inhaler for all of that. So let's get to this National Native Plant Month. So apparently, look, I started on a path of telling you who started this National Plant Month resolution in the Senate. It was unanimously passed in, 2019, something like that. Senate Resolution 157, unanimously approved by the full Senate in April of 25, something like that. Anyway, that was really exciting, but then someone retired, other people took it over. Point is, it looks like together, the Senate actually did something. Republicans and Democrats together passed something really cool, but it is a resolution, not a law, in case you care about this. Apparently, it has to get reapproved every year. But so a national or a native plant is a plant that has grown in that specific geographic region basically since the dawn of time. Okay. And so it's unique to its geographic location. Now, when you talk about plants, so you're like, okay, well, what's that got to do with anything? You know, I see all kinds of trees, all kinds of bushes, all kinds of flowers. So yes, all plants do nifty stuff. Okay. So they absorb carbon dioxide. My lips are getting cold. So they absorb carbon dioxide, turn it into oxygen, release that, and obviously that is what we need. So everything needs oxygen. Plants stabilize the soils, filter water, protect wetlands, all that kind of groovy stuff. They also absorb nutrients from the soil, and then when wildlife or us eats those plants, that's what gives us the nutrition, okay? So all plants that are edible by something do that, and that is groovy. But native plants are what we are talking about, and that comes with a unique set of characteristics. So the landscapes today, all of our landscape, whether it's commercial landscape or our personal landscape in our yards, contain plants from around the world. And so all of those plants still do all the things I just said. They remove the carbon dioxide, release the oxygen, that sort of stuff. But our local pollinators have not caught up to that evolution. The evolution necessary, like the evolution of our local pollinators to be able to keep up and to be able to eat all of this exotic food, if you will, okay? So our local pollinators need the local plants that have been in this region since forever, because if this makes sense, I'll just say it my way. Scientifically, genetically, DNA-wise, and all that stuff, their brains must eat certain food. Now, let's just say maybe you're a rabbit, okay? So I'm sure there are exotic grasses and local grasses. Maybe that might not matter. But local flowers versus exotic flowers, that's a totally different story. And so then you get into our local bees and butterflies, moths, flies, all of the pollinating insects and caterpillars. Those are what we're really talking about. Those are the ones that cannot keep up. They have not kept up, okay? And that's not really a bad thing. That just says like, hey, we haven't evolved to eat tree bark. I suppose we could if we had to, but it's literally not our preference. So we're certainly not going to be able to live on tree bark. So let's put it that way. These insects and not grasshoppers, caterpillars cannot eat the foods that are given to them in a non-native landscape. Okay, so one example, everyone loves daylilies. All kinds of lilies, exotic lilies, daylilies. Those are sterile. I've read several articles that say they provide pollen and nectar, but it must be pollen and nectar in Asiatic lilies. That's what I meant to say. They are exotic, but Asiatic lilies and daylilies. I have never seen a pollinator on those in my life. I actually got rid of all of those in my yard. So I will add on a quick note that if you are an Asiatic lily freak, okay, you just love them, they make your heart swell with happiness, then hey, have some. Okay, but I would ask you then to look up what is a native flower to your state, to your area, and plant those also. I've said this before. Doug Tallamy, he's a big deal guy. I think he's an entomologist. It doesn't even matter. He is a big deal guy in the native plant movement, okay? He has a wonderful book called Bringing Nature Home, as well as quite a few other books we've had the honor of listening to him speak. He is a very passionate plant native, and I agree with all of that. I think he has an 80-20 rule. Plant 80% native, 20% non-native. As a layman, I would ask you if you could just plant anything native, because anything is better than nothing, okay? And so you a little bit more and a little bit more, and then you'll have a whole bunch of native stuff. So if you can follow me on this, so I would say, like, you get these native flowers, and I'll also say, so zinnias, that's one of my favorite, okay? And I'm trying to do this in a logical order. So zinnias are native to the American Southwest, so they're not exotic to the United States. They may not be native to Ohio, but they provide a lot of nectar and pollen, like nectar and pollen sources for all the bees and butterflies that visit our yard. So I've got one thing covered. I have the food covered, okay? So that's a nice restaurant for the local pollinators to eat from, okay? But then we have a thing, and this is where native plants are really very important. And you could never have all of the native plants that are going to hit this next point, but this is a very important point of why native plants and a variation of a variety, I should say, of native plants throughout neighborhoods and cities are so important. So every butterfly and every moth anywhere has a specific host plant, okay? This is where I'll demonstrate with milkweed. But a host plant, said my way, is the plant that a moth or butterfly needs to lay its eggs on. Because once those eggs hatch, then they become caterpillars, and the caterpillars must eat the leaves of that host plant in order to survive, okay? So if none of us have these host plants, we are not going to see any more butterflies ever again. I mean, that's just a flat fact. They cannot adapt to lay their eggs on anything else. So in the example of monarch butterflies, the only thing a monarch butterfly can lay their eggs on are species of milkweed. And so there's several varieties of milkweed throughout the country. I don't recall. I think Ohio has 7, but the point is we have a few, okay? And I will remind you that I am not an expert, so that's why I say, like, whatever, or Google it. I'm kind of your idea guy, and so I know what I tell my husband is I know a lot of things about stuff, okay? So, but as far as specifically, I'm not an entomologist, I'm not a master gardener, I'm not a horticulturalist, but I am very passionate about the subjects that I talk about. So I like to try to help us both out and learn about things about stuff so I can pass that stuff on to you, and you can make good decisions when you go to your local nursery. So if we get rid of all the milkweed, we will... Ow! I just got slapped in the face with a seed pod, so that really hurt. That is the dangers of doing this podcast outside. Anyway, back to the monarchs. So the monarch butterfly needs the milkweed to lay its eggs on, okay? So I could never rip all of the host plants for all of the butterflies and all of the moths off the top of my head. But for the black swallowtail butterfly, another family of host plants is dill, parsley, rue, like common rue, R-U-E, and fennel, okay, bronze fennel, regular fennel. So you get a 2-for-1 deal with fennel and parsley, actually. You can cook with it, and it is a host plant. So when I say it's a host plant, and then, the eggs, the butterfly or moth lays their eggs on the host plant, those eggs turn into caterpillars after they hatch. I do not want you to think, oh my gosh, well, why am I going to plant that when the caterpillars are going to decimate my plant? That really is not how it goes. We're not talking about I forget what they're called, I think bagworms, where they take down a whole tree. That's not how it goes. They just eat little holes. You won't even notice. An oak tree hosts over 400 species of moths and butterflies. They do not decimate the oak tree, okay? I promise. They just nibble, 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 get the nutrients they need, go off and make their chrysalis or their cocoon, and then they come out a beautiful butterfly or moth, okay? So not much damage at all. You would never even notice it, but this is what the Native Plant Month is all about. If we do not provide the native trees, grasses, bushes, flowers for our local insects and caterpillars, then we've got a real problem. And I don't know about you, but I love seeing butterflies. They make me very happy. So if we can do two things, provide native sources of pollen and nectar. So what that would mean is when you go to, and listen, going to your local nursery will be the best bet on this, because that way you can ask the folks that work there. You can say, hey, I live in Ohio, which obviously would be where your store is, but what native flowers can I buy to feed my local pollinators? And if you're short on time and money, listen, maybe all you do is have a couple of pots, okay? One pot of a native flower and another pot of a decently native flower, which is a zinnia, okay? And then you've got that covered. But maybe you want to take it a step further, and this would be step 2, and you go to your local nursery and you say, hey, what native plant can I buy that would be a host plant for our local pollinators, okay? And they can direct you on which ones to buy. You can never, ever, ever go wrong with milkweed, because that is why one of the main reasons why monarch butterflies are in a steep decline is because nobody has milkweed anymore. And milkweed is not a weed. It's just called milkweed, okay? They really need to name it something else, because it's suffering from a severe PR problem from its name alone. But anyway, if you could plant one species of milkweed and maybe something else, that would really be great, because then if we all do that, we will have a lot more ground covered with native plants. So I hope I've given you something to think about. This is easily solved by a quick trip to your local nursery and asking for a native nectar and pollen producing flower and a host plant, and that will do a whole lot of good. And I thank you for listening. If you have any questions, drop me an email, check me out online. It's all under backyardcolumbus.com. It's all under Backyard Columbus on social media platforms and backyardcolumbus.com online. And that is it. I better get inside before I totally lose my voice. Have an awesome day.